Hello everyone, and welcome to a different type of video, where I'm just gonna kinda showcase this weird competition I was entered into called the Dwayne Johnson competition. Now, this is a really weird competition since the start, so here I have the screenshot showing just how I was brought into it, with a friend request from Dwayne Johnson, and he says greetings, and after that I was invited to a group chat with 9 others. Some of those I remember still: Suki, Charlie, Jigga, I think Jason was, maybe Morale, I don't know. I don't have a screenshot of that group chat sadly, but with some friends I know from the Ultra Custom Night server. And we're all pretty confused, but apparently those people in that group chat had gone through what was considered Season 1, which Season 1 is called the RNG season, which I'll get to the seasons later, showing that. But going back to the intro I just showed you, one of the interesting things to note is right at the end of the video when it cuts to black, a flash appears showing 21st November. Now, we've heard of this date before, and it has been considered to be Judgment Day. Again, I'll get back to this later, but I just want this date to be in your mind, especially as how it was rather recent. Now, when we were added to this group chat, Dwayne kinda explained some things. Firstly, saying how everyone was randomly chosen, and how the winner of the competition may win a prize, maybe even money. And he also laid down rules, saying how on 21st, there will be judgment, just like I said earlier. Whoever's still in the game will get a reward, whoever's eliminated will never see the light of day. Again, and try to stay alive. Again, we're all confused, because it's just this random person named Dwayne Johnson telling us we have to participate in this competition. I don't know, it was really confusing and kind of funny. And here we go with the seasons as I was explaining. So Season 1 was in August, and this is what the first group chat I was added into just went through, and this was considered to be the RNG season. And me and several others were invited into the start of Season 2. Now, Season 2 is considered the art season. Looking back, I can see why it was considered the art season, which you'll see in the future here with some of the challenges. Season 3 is set to start in October, and final season in November, and a Christmas special in December, which, honestly, kind of excited for, because this was a rather fun little experience. Now, Dwayne was also explaining how, for Season 3, he wanted to try and get a huge amount of members, and I'll explain more of this as we get towards Season 3 area. Probably I'll explain that in the Season 3 video rather than this one, because I just want to stick to Season 2. So, and now that we have the rules of the competition, the layout of it said, we'll go on to the very first challenge we were given in the little group chats before we were even invited to the server. Now, Dwayne provided us this video, simply called Find a Hidden Message, and it was unlisted. We were set to screenshot at this point in the video, 18 seconds in, where it says your next challenge is a screenshot here. And the description of the video led to another video, where Dwayne commented something. Sadly, that comment is now deleted, so I don't have it. But something referring to what I'm guessing was the original purpose of the challenges is to discover the other team's names. And I'm guessing it was a hint to discover those. Especially seeing how the one screenshot I did have of the group chat, luckily, is Gumball saying, is Charlie in Team Flame 9, or how about Mechabite? And Dwayne Johnson didn't really elaborate how we got it correct, but after the competition being over and after seeing the other teams, I now know that Team Flame was the name of the team we were looking for, and that allowed us to finish. So we placed in second out of the 3 teams, so that's rather good. And after that, we were told to do this Ultra Custom Night character quiz, and get how many correct as possible, and just show our score once done. Again, everything just really random, no order it seems like. But At the same time, it was kind of fun with the randomness. After everyone completed the first challenge and the character quiz, we were invited to the Dwayne Johnson competition server, where everything else happened. Now, the first event that took place in this server was, funny enough, an Among Us challenge. 2 people were randomly selected to be the imposter. However, they were not so randomly selected actually. Get some more to that later. So those 2 DM'd Dwayne who to kill, and everyone else in the server had to discover who the imposters were. Now, our tactics of figuring this out was deciding who was being the least active, since we figured that whoever is being the least active is the one DMing Dwayne, since they're not talking in the chat, obviously. Now, this was a pretty good strategy, but sadly I was killed pretty early on, and I discovered that one of the imposters was Jonak Archive, and he just simply said, "I murder you," which I found funny. But shortly after my death, Jonak was discovered, along with Epic Gamer Dokofan, and they were both eliminated from the competition already for being found. Now, we didn't really realize that finding the imposters would get them eliminated, but hey, we were just happy to save ourselves. Now that the Among Us challenge was over, Dwayne specified why those 2 were chosen to be the imposters. He says Jonak Archive won, which is why I made him the imposter. And he said that in response to Gumball asking about the Ultra Custom Night character quiz. So the point of that quiz was whoever got the most points out of it would be selected to be the imposter. However, it seems like getting the most on that quiz was sort of a setback, since winning as imposter in this situation would have been rather difficult. But hey, as I said, we were just happy to survive. Shortly after the Among Us challenge ended, a little clue for what the next challenge was is shown. Simply a screen saying tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow. But in about the top left area, kinda, middle left-ish, it says in very tiny text, The Hunger Games. I'll zoom in there so you can see it. And we kinda started discussing this, and since Dwayne saw we found it, he decided to just blatantly say The Hunger Games is coming up, and Evian was right in saying that it was the website version. And we were all a little scared, knowing that this is RNG. Now, this is gonna be a big stretch of me going through the entire Hunger Games thing. It's like 40 images, so I'll probably put a timestamp if you just want to skip to the results of the Hunger Games, rather than hearing everything about it. So yeah, I will get into reading the Hunger Games now. So here's the players and their districts. You can also just kind of see all of the players in the competition at the time, so that's kind of nice to see. And heading to the first one. As the tribute stand on their podiums, the horn sounds. Super Mario Justin 4 shoots an arrow at Sebastian, but misses and kills Sush instead. Jigo Over runs away from the cornucopia. Yellow Man runs away from the cornucopia. Performa runs away from the cornucopia. Why did everyone run away from it? Jeez. Morale clutches a first aid kit and runs away. Gumball also runs away. Charsity snatches a pair of sais. And Edgy Robotnik runs away from the cornucopia. Nugget also runs away. Crobat grabs a jar of fishing bait while Robin gets fishing gear. Parrot runs away. Sayasuki runs away, which I'm gonna start calling Sayasuki Nard just because it's easier. Charlie also runs away. Groger, Yendo, Penrose, and Gainsta share everything they gathered before running. Evian runs away. Darth runs away. Dark Flames runs away. Evian and Dark Flames hunt off for other tributes. Robin Spook runs away from Penrose. Lil Parrot injures herself. Gainsta Mario receives a hatchet from an unknown Spencer. Nugget and Charsity hunt for other tributes. Gumball goes hunting. Crobat runs away from Jigo. Robotnik receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Performa and Yendo hunt for other tributes. Charlie stalks Darth. Yellow Man, Kroger, bye. And Super Mario Justin raid Meow's camp while he is hunting. Nard discovers a cave. Sebastian goes hunting. And here we get to see the first results of the first area. Such is the only one dead. Super Mario with the first kill. Sebastian stays awake all night. Super Mario and Evian talk about the other tributes still alive. Nard convinces Performia to snuggle with her. Darth screams for help. Parrot sees a fire, but stays hidden. Charlie screams for help. Morale lets dark flames into his shelter. Yendo, Frogger, and Robin cheerfully sing songs together. Crobat is awoken by nightmares. Nugget sees a fire, but stays hidden. Yellow Man cooks his food before putting his fire out. Gangsta Mario and Gumball sleep in shifts. Vi taints NG Robotnik's food, killing him. Charsilly loses sight of where he is. Jiga starts a fire. I go hunting. Nard receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Dark Flames, Nugget, Morale, and Performa raid Jiga's camp while he is hunting. Robin, Super Mario, Justin, Evian, and Parrot form a suicide pact, killing themselves. I forgot about that. Gangsta Mario sees smoke rising in the distance, but decides not to investigate. Charlie questions her sanity. Yellow Man makes a wooden spear. Yendo and Sebastian split up to search for resources. Vi makes a wooden sphere. Gumball and Penrose split up to search for resources. God, I'm dyslexic. And next little wrap-up screen, whatever, recap. Nugget and Sebastian talk about the tribute still alive. Penrose and Sayasuke tell stories about themselves to each other. Frogger attempts to start a fire, but is unsuccessful. Dark Flames goes to sleep. Morale receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Yellow Man overpowers Vi, killing him. Darth stays awake all night. Charcity sets up camp for the night. Crobat and Gumball hold hands. Gangsta Mario attempts to start a fire, but is unsuccessful. Performa tends to Charlie's wounds. Yendo kills Jiga while he is sleeping. Penrose receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. How fun. I injure myself. Charlie is pricked by thorns while picking berries. Performa and Dark Flame split up to search for resources. Darth and Nard work together for the day. Yendo receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. Morale, Gangsta Mario, and Charcity raid Gumball's camp while he is hunting. Sebastian sprains his ankle while running away from Nugget. Crobat hunts for other tributes. Another little recap. Charcity loses sight of where he is. Charlie kills Yendo with a hatchet. Penrose starts a fire. Gumball tracks down and kills Nugget. Surprising. Darth receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. I sing myself to sleep. Sebastian tends to his wounds. Crobat fends Nard, Yellow Man, and Gangsta Mario away from his fire. How do you do that all by himself? Impressive. Dark Flames and Morale huddle for warmth. Performa stays awake all night. Darth sprains his ankle while running away from Gumball. Charlie camouflages herself in the bushes. Gangsta Mario and Yellow Man successfully ambush and kill Performa, Frogger, and Crobat. You bitches. Nard, Sebastian, Morale, Charcity, and Dark Flames hunt for other tributes. Another recap. Yellow Man, Darth, and Morale cheerfully sing songs together. Nard, Gangsta Mario, and Charcity cheerfully sing songs together as well. Sebastian climbs a tree to rest. Charlie fends Gumball, Dark Flames, and Penrose away from her fire. Sebastian tries to spear fish with a trident. Charcity searches for firewood. Gangsta, Morale, and Charlie hunt for other tributes. Gumball sees smoke rising in the distance, but decides not to investigate. Darth makes a wooden spear. Nard unknowingly eats toxic berries. Yellow Man receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Dark Flame constructs a shaft. Another recap. Charcity and Yellow Man run into each other and decide to truce for the night. Dark Flames, Morale, Gangsta Mario, and Charlie tell each other ghost stories to lighten the mood. Gumball receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Penrose thinks about winning. Darth falls into a frozen lake and drowns. Painful. Penrose repeatedly stabs Charlie to death with Sais. Sais? I don't know what that word is. Yellow Man decides not to go to the feast. Gangsta Mario decides not to go to the feast. Gumball sobs while gripping a photo of his friends and family. Charcity, Dark Flames, and Sebastian confront each other, but grab what they want slowly to avoid conflict. Morale strangles Sebastian with a rope. Charcity stabs Yellow Man with the tree branch. Dark Flame defeats Gumball in a fight, but spares his life. Penrose diverts Gangsta Mario's attention and runs away. Penrose convinces Gangsta Mario II to snuggle with her. Dark Flames and Gumball track down and kill Charcity. Morale attempts to start a fire, but is unsuccessful. Dark Flames practices his archery. Gangsta defeats Mario in a fight, but spares his life. Gumball collects food from the tree. Penrose dies from hypothermia. Gumball and Gangsta hold hands. Dark Flames sets up camp for the night. Morale climbs a tree to rest. Dark Flames and Gangsta Mario fight Morale and Gumball. Morale and Gumball survive. Now to the final two. Morale kills Gumball with the hatchet. The winner is Morale from District 6, which if I remember correctly is in fact my district. Let me just take a quick look-see. Actually I can't see it, never mind. Anyways, I'm pretty sure that was my district. Yep, that was indeed, I just went back and checked. So with that out of the way, after that there was a vote deciding who to die from the losers of the Hunger Games. And both Slush and Super Mario were put up for elimination by Morale and Evian, and Super Mario was the one to go. This was the first time democracy was involved with the voting of who gets eliminated, so that's pretty cool. Now after this whole situation, there was a little team swapping to get teams to be even after the few eliminations. And everyone kinda agreed that it was kinda stupid, since we had no say in who got switched to where. And overall, people just wanted to stick with who they were with and already knew. So, Dwayne responded to Evian saying, "I agree, that's why it is not happening again." And strangely at the end of his sentence, he put Y1ES. Now at the time, we didn't really think much of this, but more clues were given to us. Now, he gave us a link, which led to a game jolt. And on that game jolt, we found a code, which we easily found to be for our YouTube video. And I will go ahead and play what the YouTube video holds for us now. Now you might not have seen it fully there just because the quality of the video is low, but at 14 seconds in, there's a flash of a little white code that says TPX. Now, again, we thought this was strange, but we kinda started piecing things together. And we figured that the TPX Y1ES could be forming some sort of link. Now there was one more piece to this link that I can't really find anywhere. I don't know how we got it. But we did eventually, and I was the first and surprisingly only one to crack the code. So here's me explaining how I cracked that code. You can pause and give it a read if you want. But what the link gave us was the Online Night Shift trailer by Camille Firma. We were rather confused by this at first, obviously, but then we actually thought about it for a second and came to the conclusion that hey, this Online Night Shift game might be our next challenge. So I decided to start playing this with my friends in my free time just to get a little experience with it. And shortly after discovering the Online Night Shift trailer, a new intro was uploaded, so here is that. Alright, so there's another flash of text there. I don't know if you saw it or not, but that was revealing the code to the link that we found, which we were concerned about this at first, knowing that the others would probably find it, but surprisingly they didn't, so that was good. And more notably, at the end of that intro was just a little art showcase of the banners already made for the other teams. Now, Gumball drew 2 of these, which, honestly, I really like all of these, and a lot of the art that came out of this competition was just really stunning to me. So at the top left, we have a banner for Pufferfish Gaming, drawn by Gumball. Below that one is a banner for Silver-Handed Bashers, again drawn by Gumball. top right is for Pufferfish Gaming, and below that one, again, Pufferfish Gaming. There was no Team Flame banner yet, and this will come to play in the future, actually, so I'll save that for later. But moving on to the next point, I asked about if any other teams have cracked the code, and Dwayne said no. And I honestly felt rather important at this point, I guess is a way to put it, to where I actually managed to do something for my team. And seeing as how no other teams could crack it, it seemed like it was a rather difficult thing to do almost somehow. And I just felt kinda good. Now, just a little funny moment that happened with Dwayne interacting with Robotnik. One of the things that occurred a lot is a lot of people asking Dwayne who he truly is, and he would just always put the same answer basically, I am Dwayne The Rock Johnson. So after this response, Robotnik went on with, how do you feel about Paper Mario? Dwayne The Rock Johnson did not finish school due to his major phobia of paper. Dwayne responded with, I did essays on my rock hard abs. Robotnik says he cannot watch The Office due to the fact that they work at a paper company. So he's just trying to really nail down the fact that paper beats rock. Dwayne says The Office sucked anyways. You know what else sucks? Your mother. Which, I don't know, I just find it rather funny at how sometimes he broke character in a way just to be comedic. Now, at this point, some extra people are also added to the competition, such as Funlock and Mechavite, or Donovan is listed in the video here. And the funny thing about Donovan here is that he would always just say Dwayne and like nothing else basically. And eventually from saying Dwayne so much, Dwayne Johnson decided to add a Dwayne team. So rather than some of the new people being added to the already existing 3 teams, people were added to this Dwayne team. And I don't know, it caused a rather funny scenario to where there's just an extra team now. And sadly in the midst of this, there was apparently an RNG spin that caused Hero to get eliminated, a member of our team, which really sucks. Since, I mean, Hero was one of the ones that we talked with more often, and we were getting to know him, and it was nice, and then he was just taken away from us. It sucked. Before we really had time to cope and discuss about this death, another intro was sent, so here's that. Okay, now something interesting about this intro is the fact that a memory section was added, which it's nice to see that the members that lost get some recognition still. And between the periods of this intro and us finding out about Online Night Shift, we did manage to play Online Night Shift. And not only did I think, play the most games, but I also won the most games, which gave me the power to choose someone to be eliminated. Now this was kind of a scary power since I didn't want to really start an accidental conflict, but I decided to go with who seems like it would be a more stronger competitor, which I know Yendo Gaming is a rather smart person, so I figured he'd be the best bet to vote out, because he's an actual threat. After Yendo was eliminated, Dwayne decided to do another wheel spin to eliminate another person, which I have no idea who this person is because it just says deleted user, and I don't really want to do research to find out. But yeah, someone else was eliminated. And sadly enough, the Dwayne team was also removed at some point here. No more Dwayne team, and Donovan became up for grabs to anyone. RealFunlock was sent to Team Flame. Once again, another interesting thing that happened was a sort of extra challenge is finding whoever Jonak Archive's alt was, since apparently Jonak had brought 2 alts into the competition unknowingly, and it was our goal to find out who they were. And it's weird how he says, if you find out, I'll open the key door. Someone in Pufferfish Gaming asked what's in the door, and if you translate this to binary, you get yet another binary code, which translates to moderator for a day. So if you find out who the alt is, you supposedly become mod for a day, which is an interesting power. Yellow Man was the first one to find his first alt, D3 alts, I don't know how to say that to be honest. And I messaged Jonak about it. It took a little convincing, but he eventually told me what the other alt was, which is Epic Gamer Fan. And with that, I was one of the lucky ones who got the power of mod. As I said, Donovan became up for grabs after the Dwayne team was deleted, and another challenge that came up with that was having to draw an art banner for Team Flame, since Team Flame doesn't have a banner yet. As I said, Team Flame not having a banner would come into play later, and here that is. And all of the art that came from that is shown in this intro. As you can see, Sky won the competition by a landslide, which Sky is RealFunlock. And her art is truly just amazing here. She put a lot of effort. I don't know why she put so much effort into this, but she did. And Team Flame won Donovan. As you saw, the videos for Online Night Shift were also put into there. Mainly my clip, I think it was. I don't think anyone else did, actually. And a funny moment that happened while we were playing on the night shift is Dwayne said his famous line, "Can you smell what the rock is cooking?" I thought that was kind of funny. And as I said, after finding out who Jonak's alt is, you're given the ability to be mod for a day. And I used my mod very well. Here's a little video showcasing what I did with my powers. I just changed everyone's names to Dwayne because I thought it'd be funny. And Dwayne found it comedic, I guess. So that's good. And another little comedic thing to occur is Dwayne saying one of the challenges suggested by Charlie was writing a 7-page long love story between me and Eminem. How romantical. Anyways, another intro. I hope you guys aren't sick of these things yet.
NANI?!
Sadly, there was a surprise elimination and Char-City was removed. Yet another RNG elimination. Not too big of a fan of those. But hey, it's what happened, and sadly you just gotta deal with it. But now that we've seen so many intros, Dwayne decided it'd be interesting as a challenge if we created our own intros. And he gave us tips as well, saying points for music if it's intense, points for extras such as an art showcase, advertisement, memories, points for how funny it is, points for the clips we'll use, the more original the better, and points if there's a secret message. Now, I spent a lot of time on this. Gumball also put a lot of effort into it. And there are some other intros that were just more for the silly gig, but I wanted my intro to look more professional actually. So, a new intro was shortly uploaded with Dwayne's approval ratings of each intro, so here's that.
It's your boy Flo Rida and Nelly Furtado. We're teaming up with G-Force and Disney to make you jump.
Unlock it and rock it.
Like NBA ballin', I don't care. Come on, baby, you can find something that it jump with this man, bump to this man, thump to this man, bump to this man.
You ran a mission without my authorization. I'm shutting you down.
Welcome.
So as you saw, I won the competition, and since I won, I believe I decided to put up Team Flame for elimination, which is why they are here. And Nox was the one eliminated. Sad to see him go, but I don't think he really talked much anyways, so not the worst fate. Another event occurred. It's how 2 intros, both mine and Gumball's, included a secret code. Now, my intro simply just led to the old Animator Cell game page because I like Animator Cell and I thought it'd be kind of funny. But Gumball on the other hand, his code led to a Rickroll. Dwayne was not happy, and he gave him a role called the Danger Zone. This meant that he would be put up for elimination no matter what for the next few votes. Pretty brutal, but hey, I guess deserved? I don't know. And here's another funny thing, bonus challenge of having to troll Evian. Sadly, we never went through with that challenge. I wish we did, though. And oh hey look, another intro, wow, would have never seen that coming. Okay, Dwayne got his revenge on Gumball here, which we were all scared at first, but, you know, it's pretty funny to see this. Now, there are two things in this rickroll to point out. One thing being the fact that it says if you found this message, congrats to you. And the other thing being, the next challenge is a Kahoot. Yes, I sat through this rickroll just to find these. Twice. Not fun. Anyways, as I said, Kahoot challenge was next. And the funny thing about the Kahoot challenge is that it failed. So, the original plan is that the top 3 represents their team. So, per se, if I were to win, I would represent Swivel-Handed Dashers, and our team would have won. If Charlie would have won, she would have represented Pufferfish Gaming, they would have won, so on, so on. If all teams are in top 3, third place will be up for elimination. And the funny thing is that Pivots, who was supposed to host Kahoot, couldn't host it for the life of her, because her internet was just failing, gone. And Dwayne started threatening her, saying that he will eliminate her if she doesn't get the Kahoot to load. And then it's funny how he says that he's gonna send her a new router. And it was messy, it was a complete flop. So the challenge was changed to become a music challenge. So he gave us these notes: A, B, C, B, C, D, E, D sharp, E, F, E, G, A, G, A, B, E. You can play that on a piano if you want or something. But eventually we were told that it's the intro to the Rebel Sun, which is the intro music that he uses for all of his intros. So our challenge was basically just to create either a remix of that or just a sort of little lyric of the notes that he provided. Now, I went ahead and recorded playing the notes on a piano just so my teammates can get an idea of what it's supposed to sound like. While doing so, I also decided to do this while having fun with the piano. Sorry, not sorry. I just had a lot of fun with rickrolls during this, I guess. There were a lot of rickrolls at this point in the season, so I'm sorry. Another funny thing that happened is Dwayne showing his homosexual side? I don't know. It's really confusing. We all know that Darth is the hottest, no homo. Everyone in this Swivel-Handed Bastard is hot, except Gumball. Oh no. He kinda despised Gumball for a bit because of the rickroll. It's funny. Now, during this music competition, Gumball put in an entry where he just sung the intro, and it was really funny to listen, and that was enough to save him from the danger zone. So he was no longer in the danger zone, and no longer to be put up for elimination unless he actually loses a challenge. So that was nice to see. Sadly, I cannot show any of the music or anything until the next intro, which the next intro is the last one. So hey, almost there. However, we did lose the challenge because Pun is really good at making music, and Meryl got eliminated from our team. Sad to see the wholesome seal go. And our next challenge was to play Garctic Phone. Here's where the competition starts to steer back towards the art season with Garctic Phone. I believe all of the games were saved and put into the next intro. Pufferfish lost the challenge somehow and Cardboard was removed. My friend, kinda sad to see him go. Now the next challenge was an interesting one. So, in each team chat, Dwayne told someone to represent our team, and it cannot be the team leader. For my team, I was selected. For Pufferfish, it was Crowbat, and for Team Flame, it was Donovan. Now the three of us were provided information, which became public shortly. And Dwayne said that today there will be 3 challenges. So what our team representatives had to do to select a challenge for the others to do. My challenge was to simply write a short horror story, just because I like writing stories and I like horror. Donovan's challenge was to just play Monopoly, rather simple. And Crowbat's challenge was to either play Garctic Phone again, or Cards Against Humanity, which I liked the Cards Against Humanity idea, but eventually Garctic Phone was the one that came through. in which when the second round of Garctic phone happened, our team lost and Nugget died for the first time. Sad to see him go. Just a few more comedic moments. Dwayne calling Gumball racist, and Dwayne saying that he can do a backflip, which I would love to see that. Comedy aside, the first story submission was entered by Hero, who was somehow brought back into the challenge. I don't remember how, actually. Or wait, I think I brought him back by winning the intro challenge. That's possible, yeah. Anyways, since we were the first to provide a submission, we were safe from elimination, so that was nice. Now, actually, I do want to go through and read the story, just because time was put into it, and it came out pretty good. So, I'll go ahead and read through this real quick. FNAF Loose Ends 1, The Box. Alright, Mike, that's the last of it. A grizzled man would approach the frontal seat of a carrier truck. He looked up to the driver, his face expressing clear exhaustion and even minor fatigue. The driver, who was dubbed Mike, politely tipped his cap to the man. Thanks again, Frank. Could have gotten all the stuff out of that building without your help. Don't mention it. I'll gladly do this again if it means removing any more of this bad stain from this town. Frank's voice grew brittle, lacking empathy. Mike just smiled. Come on now, don't be like that. This place was not bad. You don't understand. You barely went in there. I've never felt such a dreadful feeling in my entire life. The entire place was drenched by the devil himself. I'm surprised that the place used to be an entertainment center for children. Frank had to be correct to some degree. His face soaked with sweat. He looked even slightly pale. Whatever he dealt with inside clearly shook him. Mike seemed to have felt no sympathy, as his face went unchanged. He still had an unsavory smile across his face. Frank, buddy, you're being hysterical. Come on, we gotta get going now before it turns nightfall. At this point, you might as well be afraid of the dark if that place creeped you out. Frank scoffed, seemingly offended. He said nothing else and walked around to the front of the truck and hopped the secondary passenger seat. Michael looked over to him. You at least locked the latch on the back, right? Yeah, probably. Frank's voice was extremely low. It was clear he didn't want to talk. Mike plainly shrugged and started up the truck. With a deep rumble, the axles began to chum, and the big six-wheeler headed out. However, Frank did not lock down the latch. While it wasn't completely exposed, a very small gap would open every time the truck moved. The truck came across a tongue onto a bumpy section in the road. With one fierce clank after connecting with this unpaved gravel, something bounced out of the back of the truck. The trinket bounced around until eventually landing on the sidewalk. However, that wasn't the only thing that would eventually leave out of the truck over the course of their ride. Get this night on right, and in the bass up. Blow my eardrums off just like a fire truck. A pair of roundish wireless wet headsets were spewing out a radio mix of popping lyrics. A young girl was humming the lyrics vocally, though you can never quite make out what she was saying. She was bobbing and jerking her hips to the side of the beat. Her blonde pigtailed hair bounced around on her head as she was taken into the blissful world of music. Her left earpiece fell out, stumbling into the sidewalk. Oh, dang it. She'd pulled her phone from her overall pocket and turned off her music app. She crouched down, leaning in to grab her earpiece off the sidewalk. I swear I need to get a new pair of... Hello, what's this? Just over in the corner, had a small bush that's connected towards the house properly. Bleh. Something was glistening. A dazzling gold sparkle had caught her eye. She went on her knees, leaning forward and gripped a peculiar trinket, pulling out into the sunlight, revealing its true nature. It seemed to be a trinket box, large enough to fit in the palm of her hand. It was rather cold to the touch, indicating that it was made out of metal. It was coated with a bronze's finish. When its front it had a lock coated in silver. Despite this trinket box looked rather old-fashioned, it had no rust nor dirt, apart from some debris off this bush. She kept looking at this box, after examining it for its finer details. She couldn't help but continuously stare at it. It was alluring, as if her eyes couldn't look away. She felt comfort, oddly enough, from just looking at it. She blinked. She grew dazed and held her head. Oh, She stood back up. Her eyes tried to grasp on her surroundings again, soon remembering and familiarizing herself with her current environment. Well, okay. Without a fleeting second to spare, she dropped the box back on the sidewalk. She rigorously shook her head around before walking off. Her once blissful walk was no longer entertained by her music, but instead held tightly by a feeling of oncoming dread. More that she's ever felt in her life. Her walk turned into a sprint. then a jog, and finally a run. She wanted nothing to do with that box. Serena, dear, your package for design that came. Serena had just opened the door and came to the house. Her mother was on a pink yoga mat that sat in the middle of their living room. Mother rightfully examined her daughter, noticing she was sweating and lightly panting. Serena, did you jog? Your school isn't that far away. I didn't think you had to run. Serena didn't initially respond. The young girl had to catch her breath. She had ran for 3 miles. Serena staggered over towards the couch, planting herself right down and deeply sighed. Go, Mom. I don't want to talk about it. Serena's voice was sore. Her body was exhausted from head to toe. Serena's mother said nothing more, believing her girl to plainly be exhausted from school, and most likely her running. Serena's exertion led to her eyes growing heavy. She felt comfort on that couch, enough comfort to smother and make her fall into an unconscious slumber, to which she did. Mere moments after she fell asleep, she would be within a dreamscape. Normally it would take a short while in her own mind to settle on dreaming, but oddly this time it came immediately. Soon the pitch-black dreamscape became a bright light. Serena simply had to blink her eyes to erase the blinding light. Once it was gone, she was back on that sidewalk from earlier. Dreadful feeling began to seep back into her body. However, it was much worse now. She attempted to move herself as she did before, running away from the problem. But now she couldn't move. The tricky box under the bush began to move itself into view. Serena was forced to look down at it. Her neck wouldn't move in any other direction. She never thought such a harmless device would fill her with so much dread and despair. But as she kept looking at the box, she understood that this box was anything but harmless. However, despite this dreadful feeling, she could not look away. It was as if the box was luring her and keeping her right where it wanted her to be. She reached down to grab it, this time with no force applied to her body. She felt compelled to open it. Despite all the dread it was giving her, there was an unshakable urge to find out what was inside. When she had initially gripped it, the box wasn't weight, like it was empty. But now in this dream, it felt heavier, like something had entered the box during the time she'd left it. She knew she had no key, no way to pry open the metal box, but that urge did not dwindle. She wanted the box to open. It began to echo around her, those words, "Open it. You must open it. Open!" She couldn't hear anything else, nothing else going through her head. It was those same lines of words beckoning her. Those words rained on repeat. It felt like hours passed by. "Serena, wake up, it's 6 p.m. You're going to miss dinner." The familiar tone began to finally break through to her. The concerned yet calming tone of her mother. Serena abruptly woke up. Her eyes were wide and her face was still drenched in sweat. Like before, she was in a soft daze, but now her eyes were blurry. It only lasted for a short moment, and once it faded, Serena focused on her mother, who had a dreary look on her face. 6 p.m. I've been asleep for 2 hours? Serena was shocked. She never fallen asleep during her return from school. Even on the worst of days, she was never this exhausted. Yes, you have. Maybe you shouldn't run next time. Never seen you so tired. You never told me either way why you decided to run today. There wasn't any forecast today saying it was going to rain. Serena did not feel openly comfortable about speaking on the dreadful feeling that came across when she thought about that box. Luckily enough, her mother had saved her from such a horrific dream, because if not, she most likely would still be sleeping, most possibly forever. Or at least that is what she thought. Mom, it was just some dog that chased me for a good mile. It must have escaped from its box or something. Her mother tilted her head in confusion. Box? Sweetie, I don't think a dog can live in a box. She said box? It might have escaped her mind. Box? What? No. I didn't say box. I meant cage. You know, a dog cage. Yeah. Serena couldn't believe she'd spoken about the box. The cursed object was leaking into her speech. Her mother still seemed confused, but she spoke nothing of the matter, clearly thinking her daughter to be in some sort of weary state after being abruptly awoken. Well, hun, your food is in the fridge. Better eat something. And that's where it ends. I believe it might possibly still be unfinished, but for what it is, that's pretty good. Okay, I do have another story submission here that I just remembered about. This came from RealFunlock, aka Sky. This one is called Dreams, and it is a collection of nightmares she had over her life. Which, this is a bit longer, so this will be a longer read. So here we go. Dreams. A meaningless everyday. A constant normal. It made Okay. Dreams. A meaningless everyday. A constant normal. It made reality a grayscale fog. A confusing lack of reasons for what the point in waking up was. That's why I sleep. Dreams are quite unusual. Imagining different places or people instead of the ones I know now. Events are sometimes ordinary, feeling more interesting than every day. However, staying too long can make things go towards a different path. Dreams will become nightmares eventually, right? Do you believe in God? I was carrying heavy boxes into a large manor. I didn't know I was moving in until I saw the family there unpacking what I brought in. There was a mother, a father, and 3 children, one of which I recognized. His name was Evan, one of the kids I used to talk to in my old neighborhood. I greeted him. Though he was reluctant to speak at first, he said hello. Something felt off about him. It was like he was afraid to say anything, but what for? The question nagged at me for a bit. I stared at the other children for a moment. However, I decided I should return back to bringing in my belongings. Once I was done, I finally took a good look around the manor. There were crosses hung up in every room, though I didn't think much of it. I could tell they cared a lot about religion, so I didn't want to judge them for it. You know where the bedroom I'll be staying is? I asked. The mother signaled to follow her, and so I did. It's upstairs in a long corridor. Felt almost claustrophobic in a weird way. The walls were lined in old pictures. Some were really dusty and broken. I opened the door. The room seemed very old. Dust layered over all the dressers and windowsills. We'll bring your bag for you, and then we can rest until tomorrow. The woman said as she turned to leave. I slumped onto my bed and stared at the ceiling for a moment. I recounted earlier, with Evan and the other children. I feel like he wanted to say something but couldn't, and the other kids gave such a blank stare. I filled my thoughts for a while, but eventually I managed to fall asleep. I heard a crash from downstairs. I got up quickly and walked outside as quietly as I could to see what was happening. I peered from the corner of the stairs. There was someone at the bottom of them. They didn't move. Is that the mother? I thought to myself. Stepping slowly down the stairs, I leaned down towards the body and gave her a light poke. She felt cold. I moved her hair out of her face to see if she was still alive. I put my hands against the side of her neck. There wasn't any pulse. I wanted to scream, but it got caught in my throat. Just then I hear a shriek in the next few rooms. I run quickly over to see one of the children familiar on top of the father, stabbing them with a shard of pot. So that was the crash. I thought as I stepped backwards slowly. I ended up bumping into the nearby table. The noise of it dragging across the ground slightly felt almost deafening. The small child darted their eyes towards me. The stare was nearly enough to strike me in trance. However, I snapped out of the fear and started to run. They immediately started to go after me. I considered breaking a window or something to get out, but nearly forgot Evan was still probably in the house. I needed to get him. I quickly ran up the stairs, nearly tripping over some of the steps, and looked through the rooms in the corridor I was in. But I could hear the child looking in the other rooms. I hid under one of the beds, using the stuff stored underneath to hide myself more. I hear them get closer and closer. I close my eyes, fearing for what will happen if they find me. They open the closet first, then look out the window, then under the bed. I saw their face between the objects I used to hide. The empty stare they gave burned into my eyes. Eventually they left. I knew if I wanted to get both me and Evan out alive, I need to act quickly. I got out from underneath the bed and quickly peeked outside to see if the child was still there. I quietly walked into the next room and I saw Evan there. He seemed asleep, so I tried to wake him. I had feared that he wasn't alive, but luckily he did wake up eventually. I sighed in relief and told him what happened. We need to get out of the house as fast as we can, I whispered as I led him to the door. He stayed close behind me as I peeked once again outside the room. It was clear. We quickly walked downstairs as quietly as we could, but was met with a sharp metal smell. It made it harder to breathe. I put my hand over the doorknob and twisted it. It was locked. Shit, I think we might have to find the key first, I dared, dejected. I think it might be in Mother's room. I'm not sure, Evan replied. We snuck past the room I saw the father being stabbed in and went into the next hallway. We made sure to be extra careful and being quiet, since the flooring was hard wood. We cracked the door open to check if anyone was inside. Stay outside and warn me if the children are nearby. I'll check to see if the keys are here, I instructed. He nodded. I walked into the room. The room was really dark, only lit vaguely by the moonlight coming from the window. I started to dig through the dressers and checked underneath pillows and such. With no luck, I started thinking outside the box, checking inside the pillowcases and finally underneath the mattress itself. It was really heavy, but I managed to get the key. I went back outside, relieved to see Evan was fine and to know we can finally get out of here. We walked back to the front door, seeing that the window next to it was broken. Made us worry to see what we would find out there. Turned the key and opened the door. It's almost pitch black outside. You can barely make out Evan's silhouette with the moonlight. We heard a siren blaring. It was coming closer and closer. The lights lit up the edges of the withered trees slightly as it approached us. Is that a cop car? Why was it coming here? I whispered to Evan. He shrugged. Maybe the father called them before he was stabbed. The car pulled up and the officer opened the door for us to get in. I was about to climb in until Evan started getting chased by the other children. I was about to run in to try and get them off him, but it was too late. children managed to claw him down to the grass and began tearing him apart. The children eventually noticed me staring at them and ran into the darkness of the woods. One of them stayed back to attack the cops, and the other ran for me. Managed to lose the kid at the corner of the yard. A flash of bright light came from the sky. It was almost blinding. A hand reached down to pick up some of the bodies. It was analyzing their thoughts, their feelings, everything about the family. The 2 children and parents were taken. The rest of us weren't. Except for me. I was found worthy to join them. I couldn't understand how or why. Perhaps it was just the fact I was able to survive, or the actions I took. But I don't think it mattered. I walked to Evan's body, looming over it. I could see his intestines and other organs seeping from his body, being torn in half. Light overtook my vision. I woke up. 9 lives. I woke up in the middle of the night. The room felt familiar, yet it wasn't like any of the houses I remember living in. I heard a large growl from outside, so I got up from my bed and checked in the other bedrooms. Everyone was sound asleep. I went to the living room and saw that all the doors leading inside were completely open. I heard voices in the backyard, so went out to the porch. There were 2 kids crouched down above some animals. 2 cats and 2 mice were cuddled next to each other. It's really dark, so I could barely see them, but they were really cute. At some point, the 2 cats ran away. I could hear hissing and whining meows. Were they in pain? One of the cats came back carrying the other cat's decapitated head. There was blood and scratches all over it. He sat down and dropped the head, staring at us. Trying to move away from looking at it back, I asked the kids for a flashlight. They gave me one, and I turned it to look at the small mice. They looked so innocent, sleeping peacefully together. The cat caught our attention once again, hissing very loudly at us. That was our sign to start running before it rips us apart. The kids immediately booked it. I quickly joined them, but they were much faster than I was. I shined the light behind me. I could see the cat running at us. His eyes were shriveled up and dead. Then everything went black, and I was back in bed once again. Woman in the trees. I was in the forest walking home. I was with 2 other people, Evan and Jasper. There were large hills and rocks outlining our path to the house. At some point I felt the ground shake a little, and a couple boulders started falling from the hills. One of them ends up falling on top of me, crushing the bottom half of me. I was in pure agony, but they helped push it off me. They lifted me up and aided my walk. During that time it felt like the night got darker. I kept hearing voices and I felt washed. As far as I could see a white and black something hiding between the trees. We eventually got back to the house. Evan fell asleep in the chair next to me, and Jasper in the same couch I was on. I huddled next to Jasper, still feeling paranoid, but about earlier. My insides still ached from the rock crushing me. I wouldn't be surprised if I had broken bones. My thoughts were interrupted by a woman walking to the house. She was tall, skinny, and she wore a blood-covered white gown. She brandished a knife. Her black hair covered her face, but I could tell she could see me. She attacked me, getting onto me and nearly reached the knife to the side of my head. I screamed, waking up Evan and Jasper. Jasper quickly tried to drag her off me. I demanded Evan to get the scissors from the vase next to us. He stabbed her in the stomach, and she fell to the ground. Adrenaline filled me as I grabbed her knife and stabbed her in the head multiple times to ensure she was dead. I passed out from the pain in my body. Dead space. I woke up in space. I was in some kind of object or ship. There's something behind me on the wall. I couldn't tell exactly what it was. It seemed like a living black substance. It had some sort of it had some sort of blade stuck inside the goo. I could tell it wanted to kill me. Whatever it was on was layered, and there was a hole in the middle of the room. Looking down, it stretched on forever. I felt sick looking down, knowing if I fell in, the only thing that would kill me is the edges of the hole if I get too close to them. I jumped, hearing the scratching noises of broken metal. I stepped back from the hole and noticed the ceiling was slowly closing down on me. The room was only held up by large metal poles, and outside the edges were large windows looking into the dark depths of space. I ran to one of the poles and climbed onto it. The ceiling didn't reach to the far edges, so I thought it was safe. Unfortunately, that thought was short-lived, as a large asteroid hit the glass behind me, creating a large hole in the ship. I could feel the air being sucked out of my lungs. I closed my eyes and accepted my fate. Blinding eyes. A red light beams into my face. It flashes, waking me up. I'm in a room with no exit, just a bed, a bathroom, and myself. The light eventually turns off, leaving me blind in the dark. I heard whispers from the darkness. They spoke nonsensical warnings. I stumbled around in the dark, almost tripping over something that felt wet. I eventually saw eyes from the infinite darkness. All I could focus on was the eyes and the voices. I felt paralyzed. The shadow leapt at me, beginning to sink its teeth onto my neck. Even still, I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I only cried. It pushed me to the ground, and all I could do was lay there in horrible pain as I felt every slash and tear of my flesh being pulled away and eaten. Failed rescue. I was walking home. I had 2 pets in my arms. I just rescued a cat and a dog. I just kept hearing things from the dark, but every time I stared deeply into the shadows, it would stop. Eventually, I go to the front door of the house. I went inside and put them down on the ground. I heard a gunshot nearby, so I left them to investigate. I walked into my mother's room, and she was still laying in bed. There was a large blood splatter on the sheets, pillow, and wall. She had a large hole in her head, and she was dead. I ran back to where the pets were, but stopped when I saw someone with a gun looming over them. He noticed me and ordered me to stand next to them. He had a gun, so I had no choice but to comply. He began talking. It was complete nonsense. Not that I cared, though. All I wanted was to think of a plan to keep me and the animals I saved safe. I jumped at the sounds of loud gunshots. One of the bullets hit the dog in the stomach. The rest hit the heads of both of them. After that, I decided, fuck everything. I quickly slid through the glass door behind me, running as fast as I could, climbing over fences as I went. I looked back and I could still see him. He was aiming straight towards me. Waking up every day is still as boring as ever. The only dreams I ever have are nightmares. Feeling so much pain and agony, and seeing things most shouldn't. Even still, it's something. Something more than ordinary life. I sleep again, awaiting my next nightmare. I know I'll die, but at least it's better than being awake. And that's all for Sky Story. Pretty cool concept, I like it. And after that, another funny moment, I think the Yo Mama channel is highly underrated. One thing I find interesting about this is that there's no period. Normally Dwayne types, very formally, with a period at the end of every sentence, but here there isn't. I don't know, it's interesting. Now, we weren't supposed to do the challenges that we created, specifically me, Mecha, and Crobat, but I decided to write a story anyways, since this was a concept I had for a while, of remember to floss. Alright, went ahead and found my story real quick, so here it is. Remember to floss. My eyes jolt wide open as I feel a cold hand brush against my cheek. The room is dark, but my eyes quickly adjust to notice a tall doctor-like figure standing in front of me. I try to speak to him, but my words came out as illiterate noises due to a brace prying my mouth open. Fear courses through my body as I realize my body is constrained to the chair I'm currently sitting in. I've been waiting for you to wake, Howard. I just have one question for you. When was the last time you flossed? The dentist keeps his eyes fixed on mine, a smile on his face reaching ear to ear. I try to answer with a few years ago, but once again only unintelligible noises sputter out. The dentist nods as if he understood my words somehow. While reaching into his white apron's pocket, the dentist says, well, how long ago you flossed doesn't matter. What matters is getting into a habit of it today, and that's why you're here. After he finishes speaking, his hand comes out of the pocket with a thread of floss pinched between his fingers. He then rolls the floss around his two pointer fingers and begins moving the floss towards my mouth. I try to turn my head away and close my mouth, which is now beginning to ache from how wide the brace is forcing it open, but my efforts are useless due to metal plates keeping my head in place. Instead, I stare at the dentist's wide smile as he begins pushing the floss down on my gums. My gums begin to hurt from the pressure of the floss, blood quickly trickling out due to years of neglect. Although my pain is visible in my now watery eyes, the dentist keeps on scissoring at the floss in my gums, a smile still sitting on his face. After a minute of continuous force, the floss cuts through the gum, dispensing blood and causing the two teeth surrounding it to loosen. The pain is immense, saliva only causing the pain to be sharper. Not soon after, blood mixed with saliva begins to pour out of my mouth, flowing down my chin and dripping onto my chest. Before I can even attempt to plead for mercy, the dentist moves the floss one tooth over, beginning to pierce the next gum. The same process repeats, increasing pain, pouring blood, building saliva, and lastly the rupture of my gum. More moisture builds up in my eyes, my mouth aching more and more from the brace, but the dentist moves on to the next tooth nonetheless. My tears begin to trickle onto my mouth. My tears began to trickle into my mouth, combining with the blood-saliva mixture. A red river pours from my mouth as the dentist continues to rip gum after gum, only adding to the river. Some of the mixture makes it to my throat, causing me to choke until my body forces itself to regurgitate. The liquid inside my mouth never leaves my taste buds, the horrible taste only being another factor of the grueling experience. My aching mouth tries to soften into a closed state, but the brace prevents it from becoming comfortable. Blech. Along with my mouth, several teeth began to ache from the pressure as well, the loose teeth wiggling with the vibration of my jaws. My gums hurt the most of all. Feels as if someone took a knife and slowly pushed it between each and every tooth. My now weak gums are no longer strong enough to hold my teeth in place. It feels as if any sort of force, whether it being a simple pull or attempting to eat, will cause my teeth to fall out of place. After what feels like hours, the dentist finally ruptures my last gum, freeing the floss from my mouth. When he takes it out, I notice how the white of the floss is now a dark red with several chunks clinging to it. He throws the floss onto a nearby table instead of the trash can near the table, and he returns his bloodshot eyes to mine. Well, I'm glad to say your gums look much better than they did before. Crazy how much a simple strain of floss does, huh? He waits for me to answer, but I can barely force any noise without my gums and jaw vibrating in pain. The dentist's smile begins to fade for the first time, turning into a frown. No answer? Are you not happy with your gums? I remain quiet, blood and saliva blocking my ability to speak. Well, if you're not happy with it, then I suppose it wouldn't hurt to fix it for you. The dentist's smile quickly returns as he once again reaches into his pocket, pulling out a new strand of floss. My eyes become blurry from moisture. Gargle noise is coming from my mouth. Despite my visible struggle, he forces the floss into my mouth once again. Hopefully you'll remember to floss after today. Say ah. Anyways, I hope you guys are excited to go to the dentist next time now. Alright, so for some reason, Team Flame was put up for elimination. I don't know the exact reason why. And Donovan was removed from the challenge. And I think his death message was really funny, as it mimics his Dwayne language. Dwayne, Dwayne, elimination Dwayne, Dwayne, goodbye Dwayne, 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 excellent Dwayne, Dwayne. So I found that funny. And I don't believe Pufferfish Gaming submitted a submission for a story, putting them up for elimination, and Hibbits was removed from the challenge. And now we have the last intro of Season 2, which will provide the music from the music challenge and all of the drawings from Garctic Phone, so here that is. And with that, that is everything for Season 2 complete, and we are now going to be transitioning to Season 3 for next time. So, that's all for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Have a good day, and I will see you next time. Peace.
Ribbit, 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 ribbit. We are the frogs. Ribbit, 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 ribbit. We are the frogs. Ribbit.